The global crop conservation strategies are really important information documents, and they're trustworthy. They are compiled by independent experts coming together across the world to assess the global state of conservation access to genetic resources. They're worth reading. They're worth understanding what the experts say to try to follow up and do something about it. And so they're a great resource for the FLET treaty, contracting parties, other stakeholders, other experts, conservation interested folks around the world to have a source of understanding. Where are collections? Where are the gaps? What are the main needs? For instance, regeneration, safety duplication, information systems, and how can folks work together? In fact, the strategies have a lot to do with how can partnerships come together to have collections work better together, to bring in extra expertise to improve information systems and other needs. Capsicum strategy is a one-of-kind document that brings together three different sources of information that are not put together in any other form of document except for a global crop conservation strategy. That is information from global databases, surveys of genetic resource collections, and a stakeholder meeting coming together. There's nothing else that brings all that together. Why do you need to do that? Well, global databases don't have all of the information around the world about collections in it, and that information that are in the databases aren't complete. And so you need some sort of process to go out and ask collections directly to participate in such a process. And so the strategies put out a survey, ask folks to bring information back in, and then we hope to get folks together, preferably in person, to really discuss over a couple of days what the needs are, what the collections are, etc. The Capsicum strategy was done during the pandemic, and so unfortunately we weren't able to bring together people in person, but we had two different online interactive events so that we could have that social process and bring in information from around the world from capsicum collections. Well, the world's capsicum collections are bigger and more diverse than we would have known without a process of gathering information and talking to all of these different collections and other capsicum loving, chili pepper loving people around the world. They are they're big, but they also are not complete, or they have gaps in terms of particularly wild relatives, wild species that aren't really that well represented in seed banks or gene banks. And then there's geographic gaps. And those are particularly in the areas where there's the most diversity of the wild species, which are parts of Brazil, parts of the Andean highlands in South America, and in Mesoamerica. But we wouldn't know that without bringing all the information together and being able to do an analysis as well as talking to the experts. So one thing is that we now know better what are the collections that are out there of capsicum, how complete they are. The second big question that's really pertinent to these strategies is, how are those collections doing? And there's a couple of parts of that that are really, really important. One is regeneration status. Are the seeds getting old? Are they dying? Do they need to be refreshed? And this is always the case that some of these seeds need to be refreshed in any type of crop. With capsicum, it's a really big deal. Many of the collections, some of the collections, 100% of the seeds within them need to be refreshed. And so that is the sort of information that strategies are most important in gathering. That is the information that only a strategy can really bring forth through, again, the social process. There's no data actually online that can tell us what the regeneration status is currently of a crop genetic resource collection. Another aspect that's important to know is about safety duplication, how much of these seeds are put into other seed banks, preferably outside the country, and how much are in Svalbard, which is possible for capsicum. It's a seed that can be stored in freezers. And that was better off. I think if I remember correctly, it was perhaps between 20 and 30 or 35% of seeds around the world of capsicum are safety duplicated somewhere. But that's not even half. And so there's further work that needs to be done. And that's where funders or project partners can come in and assess some of those smaller collections without resources to do that duplication and put the seeds into Svalbard or other places. Capsicum is lucky to have international collections of chili peppers and other capsicum crops. even though they're not in the mandate of the CGIAR, the World Vegetable Center has a chili pepper and sweet pepper collection that's very important, very active, a lot of breeding that goes on. And then Cartier in Central America also has a collection. And so there's a benefit there of international centers looking after and exchanging that germplasm to researchers that need it. There's also large national collections in several countries, and then other types of collections, universities. New Mexico is actually a very important collection in the United States. There's botanic gardens and others. It's an interesting crop in the sense that it actually is exchanged quite a bit in terms of its germplasm, even though it's not in Annex 1 of the International Treaty, because it has some international collections that fall in Article 15 or Article 15-like arrangements. So those can be distributed that way. But also some of the national collections, like in the United States, distribute their materials under the SMTA, even though the crop itself isn't part of Annex 1. And so there is a facilitated exchange of a lot of the germplasm, even though it's not yet in Annex 1. That said, the strategy tries to emphasize the importance of bringing the crop into Annex 1, which would really facilitate the germplasm being distributed more widely around the world. Global crop conservation strategies often emphasize capacity building. We often have a section about capacity building because the understanding of a global system means mutual training, co-learning, bringing up smaller institutions that don't have the resources so that everybody can do as good of a job as they hope to do. The Capsicum strategy is no exception. It emphasizes the collections that could use a little bit of extra support and partnering to build the bulk system.